tonight we're very privileged to have Coach Yashunda Reynolds with us from Salem State University. She's the assistant basketball coach there, and she has a long basketball background. I guess I'd dare call her a basketball lifer, which is a term of endearment to me. And welcome, Coach. Thanks for coming on our show.
Thank you
nice
so
to
very
see
much.
you.
Nice to see you. Thanks for having me.
I always have a million questions about basketball, but one thing comes up about what your basketball philosophy is. I've seen you coach a few times, and I know you're an aggressive coach, so my guess is it's about taking it to the other team.
Yes, I really love defense, that, we have to be defensively minded first. And I always let the players know, let's minimize our mistakes and capitalize on their mistakes. And just strong defense, quick feet, big hands in passing lanes. I think Doc Rivers said it, if you're not talking, you're not playing defense. So I'm really big on that we talk early, often, and just keep it going the entire game.
Yeah, Kevin Eastman has a saying that silent teams lose.
Yes.
And I guess my overarching philosophy is possession and possessions. Mm-hmm. That if you throw the ball away, okay, if it happens one time, bad play. If it happens two times, bad player. Three times, bad coaching.
Yeah.
So you have to maximize your number of possessions, and you do that, of course, by dominating on the boards, mm-hmm. as well as not throwing the ball away. And turnovers, all coaches are driven insane by turnovers, mm-hmm. which mm-hmm. are hard to prevent. Now, you mentioned that communication is really important. How do you motivate your girls or teach them to talk more?
Well, we started in practice, workouts. You have to constantly be talking. I'm a big proponent on the way you practice is how you will play. So if we're not talking during our workouts, we're not talking during our practices, we're just, we don't call them punishments. We just, remember some self-discipline. Everyone get on the line. We'll run a couple of 17s, make sure we're talking, calling out each line as we touch, and letting the ladies know, like, we're gonna make mistakes. That's a given. You make a mistake as soon as your feet hit the floor in the morning, but let's not fall into those mistakes. Let's not live and die by every mistake. So just constantly, we got to talk. If we're not talking, you can't be in the gym.
Yeah, there's a saying that as a coach, you'd rather have two better players than two better plays. So much of our emphasis has to be on player development and fundamental skills. What areas do you find that you can help players improve the most in?
I am a huge fan of consistent ball control. And being able to control the ball with your non-dominant hand, just like you are with your dominant hand. I think that so many players are fortunate to get by on their talent, but they don't have that non-dominant hand. And great defenders, if they can sit on that dominant hand and you can't do anything with, that non-dominant hand, then you're basically out of the game.
Now, viewers might notice how she says non-dominant, not weak, because you want to be positive with your players at all times. So if you're talking about weak hand, that you're getting in people's heads saying, well, I have a weakness, as opposed to non-dominant hand. Now, I'm conflicted because the contemporary themes in basketball are dribble, drive, offense, penetrate, and dish. Mm-hmm. And yet, I think it's so hard to defend screens both on and off the ball that for my players, I don't have the athletic players that can really take the ball to the hoop as well as I'd like. So I really emphasize a little bit more about screens. Mm-hmm. How do you view that?
I think that's excellent coaching. I read Mike Krzyzewski's book that every year he adapts to the players he has. He doesn't live in the past of, the Grant Hills and the Christian Leitners. He adapts to the players that they have, and that's how they're going to work their system. And I feel it the same way, right now at Salem State, we're doing a lot of, on the ball and off the ball screens, spacing the floor, 2-3 times have that ball go around, and we're going to find, the open, woman so that we can score. And then I do like, we call it like the run and jump, take that
Sure.
ball, get it down the court, get up there, make a layup, and pressure them again. My own philosophy with the teams that I've coached, I really like to run a Stanford triangle offensive set. 15 to 18 feet apart. Don't marry the spot, date it for 5 seconds, and then move. Everyone has to be an offensive threat when they put that ball in their hands.
Yeah, I like balanced scoring because it's very hard to scout and defend teams that can attack you from a lot of different spots. Now, the problem with younger players is you'd like to see 3 or 4 passes, get some ball reversal because defense has trouble on the ball reversal. It totally distorts both man-to-man and zone defense. But when you get younger players, the more passes you make, chances are that somebody's going to throw it away.
Absolutely.
Are you playing real up-tempo basketball at Salem State?
A little bit, we're still a young program. Right now we have one senior and everyone else is a sophomore. So, it's a young program. We like for them to get up and down the court, but then we're also really working on teaching them, to sit in that zone, a high zone, but an active zone, hands in the passing lanes, again, constantly communicating, even if you believe your teammate can see the screen, constantly letting them know that screen's coming on the left side, right side, I'm in your help, I'm in deny. So we're really, working and educating these, great young players.
I love the emphasis on communication because, again, another Kevin Eastman is communication is early, loud, and often. So you say ball, 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 or help, help, help. Or gap, whatever your calls are, to let people know where they have to be because it's tremendously intimidating to the offensive players, and it can, as we've talked about before, engage teammates who may be a little bit sleepy because they're getting all excited about going back on offense.
Correct, absolutely. We watch it on a regular basis. The best offensive teams, if they're going up against a defense that they're constantly communicating, constantly letting their teammates know what's going on, that the coach is shouting instruction, the bench is really into it. That offensive team, they're a little bit more hesitant because they understand that all 5 ladies or all 5 players are involved on the floor. And when you're playing, against 5, intense, alert defenders, it can be really daunting.
Yeah, most coaches like to teach in sound bites because, you can give soliloquies, but the players are falling asleep. Whereas if you say the ball is gold, they know I got to take care of the ball. Or if you say reverse the ball or jump into the gaps, they know exactly what you got to do. And of course, knowing it and doing it are sometimes 2 different things. But I'm a big believer that the game there's too much dribbling and not enough passing. If you watch a basketball game with your eyes closed, as it were, and you hear the ball bouncing in a middle school or high school game, it's not a very good game.
Absolutely. One of the things I've let my players know is that you have 3 dribbles. That I don't want to sit around and watch you dribbling everything around. The offense gets stagnant, people start running into each other, and a good defense, they're just sitting there. And again, if you're using those 3 dribbles have to be north and south. That east-west dribbling is just wasted, time.
So I'm such a kindred spirit with Coach here. I just love everything she says because it's totally what I believe about basketball. Defensively, you want to make them go east and west, and offensively, you do what you can to distort. I mean, a lot of people play zone defense because zone defense works.
Right.
I mean, if the best zones look a lot like man-to-man because intense pressure on the ball, and then the best man-to-man defense looks like zone away from the ball. But everything she's saying is spot on. Now, as far as respect for the game, now, certainly we've seen women's basketball where women are tremendously athletic and skilled. Are they more respectful for the game than men are?
I believe that is to the individual. That's one of the things I always say to our players. Respect the game, respect your opponent. This game was here long before, you or I were on this planet, and it will still be here. And respect that opponent. I'm not one for, you got a big score and you're trying to keep on lighting it up. I'm not one for that because, it all comes in spurts. You can be, the dog, and then the next day you can be getting bit. So make sure you're respecting it. And and I really tell my players, if we have the opportunity that we're really, high on a team, let's work some of those different offensive sets and defensive schemes, and that by no means is disrespecting the other team. It's just giving, players and coach, a live action at, an in the game kind of practice. What are we doing well? What do we need to work on? As you said, ball reversal. If we're running our triangle offense, are we using that weak side, off the ball screen, coming through the high post, so that we can see if we can get the ball in there? Are we really working on being 15 to 18 feet apart? Are we really working on, hands in the passing lanes, hand in the player's face? Are we really working on the little things? Growing up, everything that I knew of the game was, little things. The little things make the big difference.
Right. What percentage of an average practice would you say is fundamental based? Is it 50%, 60%, or I guess it depends. You're going to have some preparation for the next opponent if you have film to review or scouting reports.
I would say that we spend at Salem State, we spend about, I would say a good 35% of the practice working on the fundamentals. It's amazing on every level how many people will catch the ball and walk before they dribble it. It's amazing how many times, players will get the ball and they won't be squared up to the basket, or they won't be in the triple threat. So just the little things, catch that ball, triple threat, square up, breathe first. That's a big one that I'm always in every break. Breathe first, relax. But be an offensive threat. Even if you can't hit the right side of a barn, let's at least pretend to the defense. Look at the basket. Look like a basketball player.
Yeah, I'm constantly annoyed by players who catch the ball and immediately put the ball on the floor because you limit your options so much. And I read somewhere where if you make a shot fake and the ball goes over your head, the referees are 50% more likely to call traveling than if the ball is lower on the shot fake, which is, just an interesting tidbit. But the coach is so right that little things make big things happen, per John Wooden.
Yeah.
Do you have any policy for social media for your players? Do you have to talk about that and say, don't go dissing this girl on Twitter or whatever?
Oh, absolutely. I work with, obviously with college students and then also with, younger students, athletes that, I'm always talking to them, what are we advertising? So what you put on, social media, on your Twitter, on your Instagram, you need to think, a good 10 seconds before you push that send. Because once it's out there, it's always out there. And you're going to be marketing what kind of person you are. And when I may be on the phone trying to convince a coach why, they should want you to come to their facility, I don't want the conversation, well, this is what we saw on her Instagram or her Twitter or her Facebook.
Right. As a coach, you have enough headaches as it is that you don't need to take on extra headaches.
Right.
Kevin Eastman, again, has he says there are 5 stages to your career. You have character, which leads to choices, which leads to reputation, which leads to your brand that gives you your legacy.
Right.
But it all starts again as your character, and it's a lot easier to have high character players who are going to give you that great effort at practice every repetition than somebody who's, to pardon the expression, a jerk. There are plenty of great players that are jerks. Dennis Rodman is a fantastic basketball player, but pain in the neck.
Right, absolutely. And it's touching on that character. I always tell the ladies, when I meet them at first, I said, I promise you will never read about me in the newspaper for doing something wrong. And that's what I expect for you to do. As a young athlete, basketball player, being recruited, one of the things that Coach talked to me about is, you only have one name, and you don't want to do anything to that name that people years later will say, yeah, she was great here, but do you remember that night she did X? We all make mistakes, we all slip up, but let's really think about the choices that we're making, because every choice, there's going to be a consequence for that. So let's try and make positive choices.
In your role as an assistant coach, do you have special duties regarding recruiting or scouting or breaking down film, or any special things that perhaps would be different than another coach on your team?
Absolutely. I am the recruiting coach, and I am specifically with guards. I work with the guards. So I'm constantly out, scouting and during NCAA sanctioned times, scouting and looking at players and following up with them, trying to build relationships, trying to find out what kind of people they are. We want to make sure that we're bringing not just the right basketball player, but the right person to Salem State, because they are student athletes, and we want to make sure that we get in players that are first able to make it in the classroom, and then, the basketball court.
I think it's really frustrating when you see a program which has a strong brand, or should have a strong brand, like in football, Florida State.
Mm-hmm.
To me, Jameis Winston is just an embarrassment.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope he goes to the NFL, so that if he decides to be, kind of a knucklehead, that he's not doing it in college. It just seems unfortunate, because you're getting an opportunity for an education if you decide to do that, and get a lot of attention to, develop your skills for a professional career.
Right.
How much more does it take to be a decent human being?
Right. Again, it comes down to choices, and it comes down to, I really think, who you surround yourself with. I think a lot of times for a lot of big-time athletes, and, I can speak from experience for even myself. I remember my mom would say, you shouldn't have more than, there shouldn't be more friends than fingers on one hand. Because the more people that are coming in or around, they're bringing in their style, their luggage, so to speak. And, that's getting attached along to you. If you're with a small group and it's a group of character and integrity, and you can kind of like check each other or jerk the slack out of one another. I just think for a lot of these athletes, they get just kind of they're in the wrong environment.
Right.
Wrong environment.
I really enjoyed Charles Barkley's book. I may be wrong, but I doubt it. And he talked about coming to the NBA. I think he went to Auburn. And then he had a mentor in Moses Malone, who Moses Malone was not a highly educated guy, but he was a smart guy.
Right.
And he said, look, you're going to make a lot of money. You got to take care of that. You got to have that well invested. You have to plan for the future. You don't need an entourage. You don't see Larry Bird with an entourage. Make good decisions. Well, and Barkley said when he became an older player, he would go to the younger guys and they'd mostly say, stop dogging me, old man. You're keeping me down. Yeah. And he just said, I'm just trying to help you.
Right, yeah. In order to be a teacher, you have to have a student. And a lot of us, we don't want to be students, and I think that is definitely, spot on. I pay attention to our athletes and what's going on their Instagram and who they're associating with. I'll definitely, pull someone aside and say, look, I don't know X, but I know what this looks like, and she, isn't playing basketball here. You are, so you got to really think about what you're doing.
There's another saying I like. It says, coaches aren't God's gift to the game. The game is God's gift to coaches. And we're very privileged to be in a sport where the game is about, for the individual, developing your abilities to the maximum possible for the benefit of the team.
Right.
What's great about basketball is a total team sport. I remember reading a story about a player who was giving the coach all kinds of problems, and the coach said, okay. He said, take the ball out of bounds. He said, everybody else walk off the court. He said, play. So,
yeah, that's nice.
Anyway, the point is it's a wonderful team game, And I'm planning on giving out one award this year at the end of the season. It's going to be the Best Teammate Award. And it's going to be voted on by the players, and I'm going to have no criteria. I'll just say, who's the player you enjoy playing with the most, because they're the best teammate.
Right.
And they're going to get a very nice token of the season.
Nice.
Well, thank you so much for joining me tonight on the show, and I've really enjoyed this interview tremendously.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right.
Thanks.